What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another discussion video. Today we're going to be talking about a question that I get so much from you guys on my PE live topics and on our live streams, and that is Monolith Soft and what they're going to be doing next. So we're going to break down what the information that we do have on their next project and whether it's going to be like a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or a brand new IP, and of course what changes and ideas I'd like to see implemented into anything that they do. So let's first start off with the information that we do have at hand, and that is Monolith Soft has been on a hiring spree. They have 2 different studios located in Japan. One of them is more of supplemental work where they help out with Nintendo on other projects. For example, they helped out with Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think they've also done like Mario Kart and some other games as well. But then again, they have their main team that does all the stuff like the Xenoblades and games like that. So they do have those 2 teams out there. Now, moving on to what we think that they're doing next. They put out a piece of art that looked like it was going to be some type of fantasy new IP. They also have like a job description in terms of what they're going to do for their next game. And it said something along the lines of there's going to be mechs, there's going to be magic, armor, weapons, stuff like that. So pretty standard affair, pretty general and basic. But based off of that artwork, it does seem like they're going to be trying something new, or they're going to be doing a new IP, or maybe they even have both in the works when it comes to a new Xenoblade game and also a new IP, and maybe they'll release the new IP first based off of that artwork, and then they'll head into a new Xenoblade game after that. Maybe not even a Xenoblade 3, maybe a follow-up to Xenoblade Chronicles X, in addition to a port of the game on the Nintendo Switch. So let's first start off with the possibilities of this being a brand new game and what we can see from it. And I think that if this new IP does come to fruition with what they're doing, then that could be something that they can explore into. And maybe there's some light mech stuff in there or something along the lines of that. But I would really love to see Monolith Soft kind of dip more into the magic and elements and everything like that, because that's one of the things that I loved about Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was the fact that you had different blades and they all were affinities with fire or electricity or water. And I love when developers add in elements and put that into some type of magic system or a unique magic system. Now, speaking of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and that has the blade system, and I think that the whole gacha system with the core crystals and blades, I think that is a mechanic that should probably never come back. Universally to a new game or to a Xenoblade game, that mechanic should be done with, because last year we got Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torn of the Golden Country, and they got rid of the gacha core crystal system mechanic and just implemented the blade mechanic, and that was awesome. That was actually really good. So I would love to see them try something like that, right? Where they have the elements, they have the blades, they have the affinities, but without the weird mechanics that tie it all together, or the weird mechanics of trying to get certain blades. What would be really cool, especially if they wanted to take that little mechanic further or kind of twist it around, is that if you go on certain like rare missions or really hard missions, then you get a blade, and you don't have to make like 5 million blades or a bunch of different common blades or rare blades. You can just make all rare blades, and you can go out and do quests and missions, and that's how you get your blade. But that would be for like a new Xenoblade game in the same vein as a Torna or a Xenoblade Chronicles 2. With the new IP and the fantasy setting, I think they can always revisit some of the ideas that they had in the past, right? Like, where is Baten Kaitos at? But that would be a little bit of like Bandai Namco involved as well. So if they did do a new IP, I think the thing that I'd like to see the most is them harken back to their old school Squaresoft roots, right? Monolith Soft, Squaresoft. This is where they came from. So if they can make a game that has like a Final Fantasy-esque aesthetic to it, right, but put their own Monolith Soft touch onto there, I think that would be a really cool way to kind of bring about a new IP. So you have, of course, the fantasy setting, you have the huge rolling plains, you have the open world that Monolith Soft is known for, but then also make it to where people can do magic, people have swords and shields and all of that, but it's not necessarily tied to mechs so much as in the Xenoblade franchise. So you can distinguish yourself from what you've done with Xenoblade and kind of separate that to what you're doing with the new IP. And it looks, from that little small piece of artwork that we do have, that could be a thing, and maybe mechs come into play in some part, but I would really like to see that. almost like Grand Blue Fantasy Link, that game that's coming out for the PlayStation 4, kind of how magic and how the world looks in that. I would love to see their own spin on that traditional style of action RPG on the Nintendo Switch. I think that would make for a great game, especially with Monolith Soft at the helm. Now let's talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or a Xenoblade Chronicles X2 follow-up, because this is something that a lot of people ask for. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the thing that's probably the biggest topic when it comes to it is, are we going to see Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Nintendo Switch? Is there going to be a port? Well, let's go over some information first. They did talk about that a little bit. They know that people want it, but they said that would be very difficult because of the size of the game and being able to port that over. It'd be expensive to do so. That game was made in a very weird way because the Wii U necessarily wasn't built for the huge open world games like that. There was data packs. There's all sorts of weird stuff that they had to do in order to get that to work and function efficiently on the Wii U. So bringing that over to the Switch might be a little difficult. However, they didn't completely rule it out. So I do think that an export could come over, or if they don't want to go in that route, they can just make a follow-up to Xenoblade Chronicles X, right? And they can make like a Xenoblade Chronicles X2, because if you've played and beat that game, you guys kind of know what goes down at the end of that. So there's definitely more room to explore that in a sequel, and that could be the huge RPG with mechs and all of that stuff, where you take the mech or skells, right? You take the skell system and you kind of expand upon that way more than they did. You can make the multiplayer more coherent, and you can kind of integrate it a little bit better with the tools on the Nintendo Switch, and then you can do all sorts of crazy stuff with the HD Rumble. That would be one of the things that I'd be most excited about, that most people probably wouldn't talk about, but with the skells and the HD Rumble and taking off and flying, the different types of vibrations that you can have with the Pro Controller or the Joy-Cons, I think that would be really cool implemented in there. Different types of laser cannons and missiles that you shoot and how that works with the Joy-Cons. That would be so much fun to kind of go through with that. So I think a follow-up to Xenoblade Chronicles X could be in the works at Monolith Soft at well, or they can just forego that and go with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, kind of put it in a completely different setting, somehow connect it to 1 and 2, and kind of go from there. So with the Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I would love for them to build upon Torna. I think Torna was the best Xenoblade Chronicles game that I have ever played, and I've played and beat all of them. Xenoblade Chronicles 1, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, Xenoblade Chronicles X, played them all, beat them all, loved them all, but I think Torna is my favorite one out of all of them. And that's interesting because Torna is the expansion standalone to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But what they did is that they cut off all of the fat, really, of Xenoblade Chronicles 2, because that game has some amazing ideas, but there's a lot of fluff and extra things in there that can make it not as enjoyable. Still an amazing game that I love, but stuff like the core crystal system, right? That was one of the things that they did cut off from that, and they improved the look of the game dramatically on the Nintendo Switch. So if they can really just take that, the look, the aesthetics and all that, then build upon it and kind of make it like I talked about with some of the blades, right? If you're going to use that type of system, don't make it to where you have to use like the core crystals and all that. Make it to where there's certain missions and then you unlock that blade, or that blade is sleeping, almost like Pyra or something like that, and you awaken that blade. You have to fight it, and if you beat the blade, it joins your team, and kind of make like maybe 10 or 15 of them, or 20, or whatever number you want to put out there, and build a grand story of Xenoblade fashion built around that. That would be really cool, because I do love the affinities and the blades and all of that. Now, they could go in a completely different direction and have the same style of combat that we're talking about, right? Where you have basically the arts, where you have the driver arts, and then you could have the blade arts, or maybe you just have the driver arts, and that's where they're going with this game. Kind of like a Xenoblade Chronicles 1, where there are no blades. You basically just have weapons, and you can tie like the Monado, right? They have some type of different sword that's like the legendary blade in that game, and put some type of gimmick around that, like Shulk's vision with that. So you can do something that really kind of calls back to Xenoblade Chronicles 1 as well, and forego the Xenoblade Chronicles 2 system. So there's a lot of different areas that they could go with. I would personally love them to see kind of take what Torna did and really expand upon that and make that better, and make the combat, when it comes to it, just a little bit more fluid. I think that they did remove moving and attacking at the same time. Xenoblade Chronicles 1, you can do that. Xenoblade Chronicles X, you can do that. But then in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, you can't, and in Torna, you can't. I think if they can speed up things just a little bit more and make it to where you can attack and also move at the same time, that would be really good for positional attacking and everything. So I do think that there's more that they can do, right? There's a lot more that they can add in. We've talked about different ideas, but I want to get you guys' opinion on this. All of you Xenoblade Chronicles fans out there, what do you think they can do for the next Xenoblade Chronicles game? What do you think that they're working on for the next new IP? Or what do you think is going to come first? What are your ideas to improve upon the Xenoblade formula? Or what do you think they can do to make a brand new RPG adventure for Switch gamers out there? Let me know your thoughts on what you think that they're doing and your ideas in the comment section below. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Go ahead and check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Really helps to spread the content of PlayerEssence across the internet in addition to YouTube. Also make sure you check out our Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube Live gaming pages. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Lets me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future. And subscribe to PlayerEssence for the latest RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next video. Peace.